Awesome. Okay. If anybody doesn't want to have their bad hair day on record, then please turn off your video.
We all like fluff our hair. Yeah, we're good. We're good. I see you there, Tim.
Do you recognize any faces, Rebecca? Anyone from?
No, but I'm scanning the list. I'm like, oh boy, who do I know?
Who do I know? Yeah, for sure. And hopefully people are adding in there. Oh yeah, we've got a bunch of people saying where they're from. Oh my goodness, Red Deer, Surrey, Vancouver Island. Oh my God, Mobile, Alabama. This is amazing. Canmore. It's so wonderful to see. Wasilla. I've been to Wasilla, Anna. I went there to do a talk for the Alaska Railway Company. It was one of the interesting drives I got to do. I love Alaska. Everything is bigger in Alaska. Anyway, so we should get started. My name is Kim Titchener, and I'm the owner of Rec Safe with Wildlife and Bear Safety and more. And I started this work with recsafewithwildlife.com a year ago, thinking about how much of a need there was for people to learn about bear and wildlife safety and how to enjoy the outdoors in a safer way from a credible source. I've worked as a human wildlife conflict specialist for over 18 years, and I've worked with Parks Canada to running my own charitable organization to starting a consulting business, and now this social entrepreneurship to try to help the public and help people that are spending so much time outdoors be safer, and also help to keep these animals on the landscape. And one of the things and topics that's really come up for me over the years and working in this field is when things go wrong, which they very rarely do, but when they do go wrong, people are often not prepared for it, and they're not carrying the right equipment. They don't have the skill sets to deal with what's in front of them. And I have seen cases of people get attacked by grizzly bears where they opened up their first aid kit and they literally were like, oh my God, this thing is melted together. It has nothing valuable in it. It's old, everything's expired, and it's terrifying. So last year, Rebecca volunteered her time to come and talk about her work. And I'll get you to introduce yourself, Rebecca, if you want to tell us about yourself and what you do. And then we'll start to kind of talk about why we're here tonight.
Sure. Well, my name is Rebecca. I'm in Saskatoon, so I'm local to Saskatchewan. I own Back40 Wilderness First Aid. So just I think the local provincial wilderness first aid company out here. There wasn't many of us when I started this up, and just trying to connect with people like Kim and other sort of backcountry businesses that are trying to promote that safe experience and preparedness that we're trying to advocate for. And so what I bring to the table is first aid and probably an opinionated view of it, and just trying to keep things as like practical and realistic, and everyday person can do this stuff, so that we don't get intimidated by it. And I think that if the people who are on here tonight are probably here because, they experience either work or recreation in the backcountry. And, I hope that, you're either here to get some tips on like what to maybe include in your pack and keep that conversation down to earth, because I don't have a paramedic background. I volunteer with search and rescue. And I believe that if we make this so complicated, you won't do it anyway. So that's where we're going to come from tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's a good point. And I want to have that disclaimer here. This isn't like you're getting a certificate at the end. You've all got your wilderness for it is a long course, right? And there's longer and like there's shorter versions, but it's not going to happen in under an hour. And we're just here to try to get your brain thinking about this stuff and possibly motivating you to tomorrow go out and start getting this stuff together and getting ready, because there is a wonderful season out there ahead of us. And you never know, if you run across a person who's injured, they need your help. If you get injured, if your family member gets injured, and it is better safe than sorry. It's just like when we do our bear safety talks, I like, be prepared for the worst, expect the best, but we've got to be realistic out there. And, people have encounters with wildlife every day out there in the wilderness. And for the most part, we're all really lucky that we walk away and these animals grace us with their presence and then decide to leave. But sometimes they don't, and it gets messy. And so that's why we're here. So I think we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff to have in a kit, but also we'll answer we'll hopefully be able to answer some questions here as we get towards the end. But yeah, I'll put it back to you, Rebecca, about kind of some of the things you'd like to talk about or as kits go.
So I think the first thing, Kim, is that, and there's going to be all different like levels of experience here, and I'm not the only expert. So first of all, feel free to absolutely argue with me or add your 2 comments into the chat. It's just, I'm just a voice for tonight, and there's tons of people, there's tons of information online. I know Kim and I both scour some comments through the social media world, trying to give some correct advice once in a while. And, I never want to say that any advice is wrong, but, I'm here with my opinion and my, background, right? And it's a dime a dozen out there nowadays, I believe. But what I know about first aid is that I think that every single person can handle the small stuff. If you have successfully lived this long, you can handle a small cut and a sprained ankle, and I don't really actually care what you do with your minor injuries. Like, people got their things, and Band-Aids and don't even get me started on electrician's tape. Like, if you use electrician's tape, go right ahead. It ain't in my kit, okay? Like, I'm not here to argue about it, okay? But what I wanted to focus on tonight was, like, because we're here with Kim, so that post animal encounter, okay? And the first thing I'd like you to know that I would rather focus on the things that are bad and the thoughts around that than the squirrel bit my finger trying to get the peanuts out of my backpack, okay? Like, it's a minor injury. I'm not worried about those things. But what I think is, if we really look at ourselves and be honest with ourselves, I think that the majority of people are not prepared to deal with a traumatic animal encounter in the backcountry. They're not. And to get this off the plate, and I want to acknowledge, guys, that I'm not trying to be insensitive or not mindful of the fact that someone has lost a family member or a friend to a bear encounter. Last year in Saskatchewan, there was a fatal bear attack, and I know some of those family members. So when I say this, I don't say this with any insensitivity, but I'm not the kind of person that will beat around the bush. A bear attack can result in a death. And those injuries, many of them cannot even be fixed by our attempts as a first aider. So at the end of the day, I have to try to bring ourselves to a point where we're thinking about the things that we might be able to fix, and that we are mindfully prepared for the day that we've got someone who's alive, who needs serious intervention now. And if you aren't prepared for that, then I would suggest you are going off on your backcountry excursions woefully naive to the fact that this could happen. Does it happen often? No. Kim and I have gone through, case studies and things like that. Bear encounters are very minimal, but when they do happen, they can be very traumatic. And I know the places where I go to recreate, I do sort of the planning thing on how long would this take reasonably. And I love to go to Canmore and Banff and the Kananaskis region. And I know that I should be planning for a minimum of 2-hour wait time. And because I carry an inReach and I have a plan and I have the ability to use my satellite device. But I also know that that 2 hours is a generous hope, because it could turn into 4 or 6 hours. I know that sometimes in Saskatchewan here, we do not have helicopters that long line you out of the back country. You got to paddle your ass out of there. So to be honest with you, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if there is an encounter or a serious injury, that my first aid will matter far more than I give it credit to when I'm planning a trip off Instagram photos. So I think that the more people that plan for the worst will never regret carrying this stuff or being a bit more prepared if and when something happens. And if it doesn't, aren't you freaking lucky? Aren't you lucky that you got another free day in the backcountry with beautiful experiences and no animal encounter? And that is not a reason to leave things at home. That is not a reason not to have a reliable first aid kit. That is not a reason to not be prepared to spend 4 hours providing serious medical first aid, waiting for someone to help you. That's all I can say to you. And you know what? Every excuse, I've heard them. So don't, it's always an excuse about why we didn't have something. So these conversations are what should prompt you to be like, hey, I got a to-do list. I'm going to go check my kit. I'm going to talk to my trip partners. You know, we're just going to make sure we're even mindfully ready. So that would be my suggestion to you, is that use this as a conversation to start your gears rolling to fix your stuff. I even had to fix my first aid kit tonight, to be honest with you. So first piece of advice I would tell you is, in the event of an animal attack, let's say all things they're done, they're safe, the animal has gone away, whatever that may be. Understand that your entire pack and the clothing on your body becomes a first aid tool. Everything you carried could potentially be used for something. A backpack becomes a pillow or an insulation piece from the ground. Your shirt is oftentimes used to put onto something that is bleeding substantially. I guarantee you, if you have a very serious encounter with an animal, you will be dealing with shock. There is no way you are prepared to keep somebody warm to the level that their body might need with that jacket you brought. So everything that is on you and in your pack, and even on them and in their pack, becomes an item that is potentially usable. So in the grand scheme of, like, you know, serious animal encounters, traumatic injuries, we've got, like, you know, let's say 5 priorities. Okay. So the first priority is obviously safety, and scene safety, and your safety is more important. And I just know that I think I can run faster than my friends. Okay. But I'm not suggesting you leave your friends, but I'm suggesting that your safety comes first. Safety aside. Okay. Second priority is many times, I think anyway, and Kim, you can correct me, but a lot of times, especially with bear encounters, there's usually one individual that's probably hurt the most. That's usually the person who was attacked. And they might have been in your group, or they might have been someone that you came across. So this is your trail karma out there, is that you happened to be someone that they encountered on the trail and asked for help. So when you think about that, if there are more than one person hurt, you need to pick someone to start with. So picking someone means that you need to pick the most serious. Minor injuries can wait, but in my head, the way I think about this is I need to find out who is bleeding the worst. Because at the end of the day, what I would like to say is that in the backcountry, there are 2 things that you cannot replace as a first aider. You cannot replace blood. Okay, you can't put it back. Once it's lost, it's lost. So stopping bleeding is like #1 priority. Okay, and you cannot really get body temperature back in a traumatic injury. So when I think about who I might go to help first, it's probably going to be someone who is showing signs of life, who is seriously bleeding. Okay, because if an animal encounter has affected more than one person and someone is not showing signs of life, but another person is, you need to go to the person who is, because you cannot put the blood back. And honestly, as a first aider, there's very little you can do for traumatic, life-ending injuries. Okay. So if you think about that from a bleeding perspective, I'm genuinely shocked in all of my courses at how people do not really actually have the tactile skills to get effective pressure from the tools that they have available to them. Okay. So to stop bleeding, it's not just, oh, put some pressure on it and everything will be fine. It's not like that. potentially with a bear, especially a bear attack or a cougar attack, you're looking at multiple injuries over multiple spots with deep lacerations and fang wounds, and you've got a mess. That's Kim, that's exactly how you started this night. You're like, this is a mess. And that's what it would be. And to be honest with you, you might be looking at a person who no longer looks like themselves. And I still remember the picture. It went all over the internet of the gentleman, I think in Alaska, who basically had the bear rip his face off, and he's healed and he survived, and it's amazing, but he did not look like a human being. His face was like gone. And to be honest with you, I don't even really think my first aid kit can handle that either. There are, to some degree or another, some wounds that you can't do anything for. In fact, you can't touch them or interfere with them because they may not be bleeding very much, but they don't need a lot of like bandaging. And, you know, in his case, it would have affected his airway. Okay. So number one priority is to stop the bleeding. So what do you got in your kits? Okay. So if I think about it, listen, you men on this Zoom tonight are all like, I've used my shirt. And then the second one you guys say is always like, I've used my belt. And it's true a little bit, maybe. But listen, as a girl, I ain't pulling my shirt off for you just yet. Like I would rather use my extras. I like to keep my clothes on when I'm providing first aid. So I laugh at like the irony of it, but like, I'm going to keep my shirt on because I have triangular bandages in my first aid kit. And it's funny, Kim, last time I remember somebody asking, what is a triangle? So if you're asking that question, it's okay. Think of it as the sling. Many people will go to a first aid kit and they're like, oh, it's the sling. That's for your broken arms. No, my friend, that keeps your clothes on. They are long pieces of material. Look, they're like long. They're that long. They're like a long sleeve shirt. So yes, I could use a long sleeve shirt, but I would prefer to save my clothing for after I run out of other material. So from my standpoint and my advice, and listen, my first aid kit, my normal hiking one is just a toiletry bag. I don't know, it's the size of my hand. It's getting thicker, but it's not very big. Okay. My small one, don't look at the brand. It doesn't matter on the brand. It's the bag. I just chose the bag. But I have a small, you know, the 0.5 Adventure Medic kit bag. Nothing is original. That's the size of my first aid kit. It's not very big, but there are 2 triangular bandages in there. And every single one, they have 2. And you know what? I have 2. My spouse has 2. Each of my children have 2. Well, holy crap. Now I got 8. So that is why, at the very least, my kits will always have 2 triangular bandages. You know, if you think about having to get pressure on something, that is a long piece of material that can help me tie around things. Yeah, I might have to use my buff or my toque or my socks or a shirt, but I can use the triangle to tie pressure. Okay, so 2 triangles are kind of, in my opinion, a bare minimum. Another item that I really, really believe in for stopping bleeding is a tensor bandage. Again, last time I remember someone saying, what is a tensor? I don't know what they're called in other places, but you know, the elastic wrap that we, you know, sprained ankles, that kind of stuff, whatever it's called where you are, okay? It's super easy to use and it gets things tight. So when you're panicking and jumping from injury and you've got this chaos going on, it's a pretty easy tool to unpackage and wrap things tight and get it on and at least get yourself one thing pressured up. And it doesn't mean we're done. It just means it's an easy, familiar tool to work with. Plus, I mean, you can do a whole bunch of other stuff like broken bones and sprained ankles and all that kind of stuff. It's a multi-purpose tool. So all of my kits have at least one, and so do all my other friend kits. And then for me, like, then it gets a little bit like variable. Because I don't, if I think about it, if it's an animal encounter, post-animal encounter, I'm not going to have enough gauze, like at all, okay? So I'm not here to worry about dealing with a bear encounter and having enough gauze to handle all their wounds. I pack the thicker, they're either called abdominal pads or combine pads. They're thick. And then usually men are like, well, I'm going to use the maxi pads. I don't care. Pack the maxi pads then. I don't care. They're cheap. They're clean. They'll be fine for post bear attack. But like, how many maxi pads are you going to pack? Because that's a little creepy. Like, most people don't take like 30 maxi pads with them in a hiking kit. Okay. So like, my 2 thick gauze pads, and I only carry 2. So to be honest with you, these gauze pads or maxi pads or whatever it is are not going to be enough for the multitude of injuries that you might have. So for me, those are going to be used to protect a wound and get something on top of it. And the rest is going to probably be clothing. You know, how many people, I'm sure, have those neck buffs, right? Like, we all wear them. I probably have 3 or 4 in my first aid kit or in my pack. So good. Get a buff, stuff it in the wound, get a tensor on it, try a triangle up, and you've got yourself some pressure. And this is where I think first aid courses are really important. And there's a big trend towards, especially in the States, Alberta, you've got a bit more options. If you can get into a Stop the Bleed program, that's another great course to take. You know, wilderness first aid courses should be talking about bleeding management and packing wounds, but Stop the Bleed courses are another short duration option. And they teach about like packing wounds and using tourniquets. So that would be the last like tool that I would suggest tonight you start looking into. So before I show you anything, understand that there are many, many commercially available tourniquets on the market. Understand that there is a lot of internet research you can do to discover the flaws or the potential like failure points of replica tourniquets. So I would just say that, you know, that there's a couple variety of brands that are approved from a tactical operations committee. Those are probably your more reliable. They have a patent, they've been tested, you know, they're a name brand, but commercially available tourniquets are now on Amazon for $10 a piece. Okay, will they work? Maybe. Am I gonna buy a life-saving device at the dollar store? No. Okay, I'm not. So I kind of stick with 2 brands myself. They're very easy to use, and they take some training. You can't just go buy a tourniquet online and then be like, well, I carry a tourniquet, therefore I know how to use it. So I either have a CAT, Combat Applied Tourniquet, it's made by North American Rescue, or I have a SAM tourniquet as well. And do I take them with me? Yes, I take one in my pack every time I go out, no matter what. Why? Because it can be used for so many things. Now, many people, I was worried about going here, so I'm just going to go here and I'm going to say it. Your improvised tourniquets usually suck. Okay, they suck, and they usually don't work well enough, especially on the leg. A femoral injury that especially opens up the femoral artery needs a device to be added quickly and effectively and without question to work. And so trying to make a belt or a piece of paracord, or the last one I heard was a tube sock. Somebody pulled off their like calf height sock and thought that they would get that to work on a thigh injury. And I will tell you right now, that's probably a fatal mistake. Okay. So I don't want to not have a tool that I could apply to a limb injury. To be honest with you and to be frank, you should not bleed to death from a limb injury for lack of first aid. Okay. If you're going to bleed to death because of an injury to the head, neck, or trunk, that makes more sense, but not to a limb if we can get good pressure and good tourniquet on. And the problem is that most people, they have this idea that if they take a leather belt off and, you know, cinch it around the leg, that they'll be able to get it tight enough. Your femoral artery is underneath the roast, the quadricep of your muscle. Or of your leg, it's a muscle, okay? It is underneath all the muscle and fat of your thigh. And I don't know about you ladies, but my thighs ain't that small, okay? I got thick legs and they're muscular. So that femoral artery is underneath all that. So that leather belt is never gonna get tight enough. And how do I know? Because I have a challenge. Every class I teach, somebody pulls off a belt and I can tie a knot tighter than that belt. So what am I going to do? Teach you how to do a tourniquet online? No, I'm not actually. I feel like you should take in-person training that teaches you how to do these things properly. When I try to put on improvised tourniquets onto my leg, I usually start with a triangle. So again, that is an expendable piece of material that I have in my first aid kit that I can get out really, really quickly, tie around your leg, and use some sort of crank, whether it be a tent peg out of my kit or a stick on the ground. But how much I have to turn it blows my mind. You have to turn it so tight that it stops the bleeding. So let me say that again. You have to turn it so tight that it stops the bleeding, which means you need to watch the wound to make sure that you no longer see blood coming from the wound or wounds. Okay? I've never seen a student in class willingly take the pain of turning that tight enough on their leg. Because by the time they start screaming that it hurts and it's pinching and it's really uncomfortable, they get to the point where they can't handle the pain, which I will tell you then as individuals, if you ever have to do this, you have to be brave enough to turn past them telling you to stop. And the real tourniquets, I see a question here, Leanne. I'll tell you, I'll write the brands. I'm not associated to them, but these are just reliable brands. I'll write it in the comments when I'm done. When these are applied, they will hurt too, but they cause less tissue damage where they're applied, and they have been held to a standard of design that effectively works. So even from a police officer standpoint or a tactical operations standpoint, the military right now, I'm having a hard time finding CAT tourniquets because of the war in Ukraine. So to be honest with you, I would rather use a device that the professionals are using. And my improvised one I can do, but I don't feel very confident in them. And I'm not cocky enough to believe that my improvised tourniquet will work. So if you are curious about tourniquets, find a wilderness first aid course, find information online. Okay, there's a ton of YouTube videos. Some of them are cheesy, like terribly made tourniquet application videos, but you'll get the point. Okay, and find a stop the bleed course. That's another option. And it's really great to learn how to do that. So a tourniquet is great for an arm or a leg, but it doesn't help if it's on, the shoulder junctions or the groin or, the neck. And those wounds oftentimes can be fatal very, very quickly. When we have wounds to the flesh, like our fat and our muscle, you think about your back, it's quite protected, right? We've got fat, we've got muscle back there. So you take a couple claw marks across there, there's not a lot of major arteries at the surface on your back or the meat of your glute. I've heard bear attack stories where they felt like their butt was just getting ripped off. Well, you ain't gonna die from that. But when you have multiple injuries all over your body, the volume of blood that is being lost by those multiple injuries adds up. And to be honest with you, you guys got like 5 liters of blood and your body can only afford to lose about 2 before it starts to get into a lot of trouble. And out there, we can't measure that. So if anything I would tell you is if you can see an injury that is really substantially bleeding, to prioritize that one first and get pressure on it and use your tools that I suggested, like a tensor and a triangle, possibly put a tourniquet on their limb, and then continue to treat the rest of the injuries. People should not bleed to death from a limb injury if first aid is available. So one of the things that I do in my courses, and I would tell you wherever you are, hold your instructors accountable. I teach my students how to use these triangles. Apparently people don't know how to use them. Like how to fold them, how to use them quickly, how to deploy them, how to get tensor bandages tight, but not too tight and all that kind of stuff. But then I get them to use their shirts and their long sleeve shirts and their hoodies and their jackets, because your shirt can do what a triangle does. It's just that I'd rather use the triangles first. I'd rather use the tensors first so that we save the clothing for another problem you might have to deal with, which is shock, which is temperature. So So that's why, you know, I think that you should try to work with the first aid tools, and then you should work with your clothing, and you should play. You can play around with it. You're not incapable of playing with it in your own living room. Okay. So tourniquets, to summarize, is something I would invest in if I were you. Check your first aid kits. Most retail first aid kits don't even have a triangle in them. You have to spend a lot of money to get a $1 triangle in a retail first aid kit. $1. They're like $1.50 at the most. So triangles and tensors you can find at drugstores and local shops. You can find them online, obviously, but those are really easy, cheap tools that aren't in most retail first aid kits that you buy. And if there are, I would suggest that you go to your first aid kit and check your triangle. I don't know if you can see it, the brown muslin kind of material. I don't know what it is. Make your own. Like, honestly, out of a queen size sheet. Watch this. Can you see me? It's long. I can get 8 triangle bandages out of a queen size bed sheet. They're like $2 at Value Village. You wash them up, you cut them up into triangles, you got, bam, 8 cheap triangles. You just got to figure out how to pack them in your kit, because most of you say you don't have room for them. Okay, well, that triangle just became a scarf or a face protector when the dust starts to blow, right? It's a lot of different things. So to be honest with you, I would say make your own, but if not, the muslin material is better. If you go into your first aid kit and you find a triangular bandage that is made out of a white kind of material that looks like mesh, it sucks. Like, open it up and try to tie something really tight with it and just tell me what happens, because they usually will either tear or the knot gets so tight you can't get them undone. So that's something to think about, is the quality of the material matters as well. Tensor bandages, they have a variety. They all seem to work, okay? And the tourniquets is something I would invest in. Now, Kim, questions?
Yes, questions, comments. There's definitely going to be lots of them. And I wanted to go back to, I shared a study with Rebecca and Sarah there from a few years ago, where some emergency doctors in hospitals in Alberta actually got together and looked at cases of bear attacks in Alberta, and were able to kind of figure out where the main areas that people get injured, which is the face, the neck, and the head. Those are the very serious locations. Obviously, other parts of the body as well. But when you lie down and play dead in a bear attack, this is what we're trying to get you to protect yourself from a fatal injury. And those fatal injuries are going to happen unless you, in a defensive attack, lie down, play down, like lie on your stomach, cover up the back of your neck with your hands, try to get your head into the ground as much as possible. Put that, if you have a helmet on because you're mountain biking, leave it on. If you have a backpack on, leave it on. It's going to give you all this amazing amount of protection, and you're going to be able to protect your neck and your face and your breathing ways. If you get rolled over, you'll roll back over again onto your stomach. Versus if you get attacked by a predatory bear, you're going to be fighting for your life and expect to get a lot of very, very bad injuries. And this goes back to what we talk about when we teach bear safety courses is, avoid the conflicts in the first place and carry some freaking bear spray and make sure it's accessible, because you're not going to be dealing with all of this stuff if you were prepared in the first place. And if everything goes wrong and you have your bear spray, you've got a really good chance of either stopping attack from occurring at all, or reducing the amount of injuries that happen to the people, or stop an attack when it's in the middle of an attack, and spraying a bear while it's attacking the person you're with. And, you could potentially save their life. So a combination of this and then being prepared for what can occur is so important. And so I just kind of wanted to mention that. And also, I think Rebecca really had some really good, amazing points here, but it goes back to also the communication devices, carrying the 10 essentials, as we talk about in some of the courses when we do the 10 essentials for bear safety. If you don't have a communication device where you can call for help, you're now waiting for someone to figure out that you're even injured and not coming back to the trailhead. And these surgeons, when they looked at the stats, like some of those averages, like some people were 19 hours in the backcountry before they got out and got to hospital. 19 hours was a norm. That's the mean. That was the mean. So if that's your average, that's pretty bad. And so, and some of these locations are not like front country environments. And even as like Rebecca said, she's out hiking in Banff National Park and she's within 2 hours of a road, like there are some helicopter access. Some days there's not. Sometimes there's no helicopters available. Sometimes they can't fly out there because the weather is too poor. My brother was in a horrible accident in 2016. And his accident, he was crushed by a boulder at 8:30 in the morning. He got to a hospital at 10 o'clock at night. He lost the use of one of his lungs. He almost drowned to death in his own blood. So he was very fortunate that the person he was with had wilderness first aid training, had the right kit, had the right information and skill set, and had a radio so she could call for help. If any of those pieces weren't there in her kit of her knowledge and her experience and what she had available, my brother would have died that day. And it really does happen out there for whatever reason, whether it's a bear attack or whatever the attack may be. And it just really does go back to just be prepared. I don't know if you had any comments back on that, Rebecca, or we can look at some of the questions people might have.
Well, I think I don't have any questions or comments, I guess, specifically, but it goes to like state that, I mean, we're kind of thinking about, animal encounters tonight, but it applies to anything. A tourniquet can be used for an open exposed fracture. I've got pictures of propeller injuries. Like you own a boat, but you don't have a tourniquet. Don't even tell me you can't have a tourniquet on your boat. Right? Like, so the stuff, the skill set that you take in any first aid course and the tools that I'm talking about are not specific just to bear encounters or, animal encounters. It's to any kind of traumatic injury, right? And your brother's wasn't an animal encounter, but it was traumatic, right? I think what we'll do, Kim, is let's say try to filter some questions out at the end and we'll try to get a couple more things off the list. Really super easy thing that I thought I would add in as I talk about injuries. You think about like a bear getting through like my clothing and my, my pack or my helmet and all that stuff. Everybody always says that they're going to, whip out their jackknife and slice open. First of all, can you even find it? Okay. Secondly, like, I'm sorry, but as a hurt person, I don't really like looking at a blade coming at me as I'm, injured and bleeding. So to be honest with you, get yourself a good pair of scissors. And what's hilarious is, Kim, when you look into first aid kits that people buy, the scissors, you might as well go back to kindergarten. They're like the little metal scissors. They're the cheapest things that people can put into first aid kits. And they cut construction paper. They don't cut Gore-Tex or backpack straps or like helmet straps. They don't cut that kind of stuff. Ski pants. Like, get yourself a pair of good scissors. The grams ain't going to cost you much in your kit, right? So I think a good pair of scissors is something to add in because it helps to expose the wound. So that way, you know what you're working with and how much it needs. And another thing that I would add in that's really easy to come by is like gauze rolls. This is all packaged up, but actually, like gauze rolls, multi-purpose. Here's the thing. If you got a wound that is bleeding super deep, okay, like especially on a limb, okay, you take this out and you start crinkling it up and you start shoving it in there. And that's your wound packing 101 on a Zoom. Like, if you're bleeding from the bottom of something that's deep, you have to pack to the bottom of it. You can't just put something on top and expect that to stop the bleeding. This whole like first aid advice of, oh, when you bleed through one bandage, just put more on top. Yeah, unless your first one sucked. If your first one sucked and you didn't get deep inside that wound, you probably need to get back in there and pack it. And this stuff is probably the easiest thing to like pack in. And that way you're not using a dirty sock. Like, don't even get me started on that. So, a roll of gauze getting kind of not shoved in like a tampon. Don't even go there, you guys. Some people always say, well, what if I just shove a tampon in there? They hold 2 tablespoons of blood and they don't exactly fit in the place they were intended. So as advice, take the gauze, crinkle it all up and start shoving it in there. And I mean, that's where stop the bleed training actually helps a bit because it does teach the finesse of that. But that's such an easy, versatile tool. So if you have some gauze rolls and you have a good pair of scissors and you have a tensor and some triangles, you're already way more ahead than most people who bought these things at a store and it's got Band-Aids and alcohol swabs. That ain't going to help you after a bear attack. Okay. The last, I think, big piece with trauma, and your brother even would have went through this, Kim, is that, and to speak to that too, though, we can't fix the inside. So your brother's injuries inside of his chest, we can't fix that. So if you even had a bear kind of land on you and break your rib cage and damage your lung and give you a pneumothorax, we can't fix that. Okay. So we got to focus on the things we can fix. So I can get bleeding under control. Okay. I can provide comfort measures for things that are broken. So if your arm is broken, get a pillow, pillow. You don't even have to be good at splinting. Just get a pillow, make a pillow. So anything that is broken, keep it nice and still. Pain really forces you to do that. Okay. And the last thing that you can really focus on as people, as first aiders, is temperature. Okay. Just because it is warm out right now does not mean that this person's body is not being affected by a temperature drop or hypothermia because of the blood loss. So there is a triangle of death. Okay. There are two things that we can change as first aiders: blood loss and temperature. The third piece is acidosis. So that's when the blood becomes acidic because the kidneys can't function any longer very well. And there's a chemistry change in the blood. We can't fix that. But if I can lessen how much blood you lost, and if I can keep your body temperature as warm as I can possibly create it, then I am doing good for that person. Okay. So in my kit, one of the things that I do pack, I don't love these things, these SOL like emergency bivy sacks, but you can find them not SOL brand. You can find anything that's a silver bivy sack. Okay. They are flimsy and they are frail, and they may, honestly, they may shred if you don't use them well. But getting a person inside of them means that their body temperature is being at least protected for a while. Any body heat that they're losing is being trapped for them. But if you don't insulate them from the ground, if you don't add more layers, it's not going to solve all your problems. But at least it's something. Those emergency silver blankets are another option, but they're limited. You've got to get them around the person, covered all around them. You can't have chimneys that are open. You can't have open gaps flapping in the wind, or it's not going to trap the body heat. So one of the big things that I try to focus on in my courses is how do we protect body temperature? So once you get the bleeding under control and you've kind of figured out what's wrong with them, then you can deal with protecting their temperature. And for anybody who's in the backcountry, I will tell you right now, you cannot underestimate the importance of getting something underneath them. The ground is cold, the temperature drops throughout the day, the wind will affect them. Anything you can do to protect them from the wind and from the ground. And to be honest with you, if you pulled off all of your clothing to do with bleeding management, you don't have much stuff left. So packing a tarp and packing some silver products and some insulating layers like the down puffies and stuff are probably the best bet that you have. Your backpack can be emptied and become a sit pad. So the more that you protect them from the environment, probably the better their body will function as it's going through its trauma. Okay. So those are like some things. Okay. And that's where, what do we do? I mean, this is a Zoom session that we can't go into major first aid, but at the same time, I really encourage you, go find a wilderness first aid course. Find instructors who want to give you, get you away from the PowerPoints. Take these courses when they're outside, because you will get more skill set added to your life experience already. Okay. Kim. Oh, so we thought about, all the trauma, right? Oh, the bear just about ate me and I'm potentially dying from my injuries. Okay. That's a bad day, right?
That's a bad day.
Yeah. But it's not always about the traumatic injury. Sometimes a bear will take a swipe, or, a cougar might as well. But it's other animals too, squirrels. We talked about squirrels.
Squirrels. Most of the injuries in Banff National Park are related to squirrels.
Right. And, the other part of it is our own stupidity. So I know that you do this, you push bear safety, right? And you push so bear spray. Well, I will tell you, I'm going to admit this. I had a close encounter. I took my mom to the mountains the first time last September. And so this is just an inert can. But anyway, she was carrying her bear spray in her scat belt that I gave her. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But my mom, she didn't know what she was doing. So the safety clip came off.
Oh dear.
Staying there. and the nozzle was pointing up towards her face.
No.
And then she tried to get over a log, and I was like, stop. Because all I could think about is my mom's like belly pushing on the trigger and blasting herself in the face.
Oh yeah.
So my mom's probably mad that I talked about her big belly online. But anyway, okay, here's the deal. Yeah. Last summer, a guy in Saskatchewan here, he took his family for a walk and his bear spray went off and it got the kids, it got the kid in the backpack carrier. Like it's, you know, we carry the bear spray and most people don't even have to use it. They will never have to spray it at a bear. But there's so many times that bear spray becomes the injury that we didn't suspect that we'd have. And it's all over. It's bear season now. I'd just like to say bear spray is not bug spray. So do not put it on yourself. Okay. So accidental bear spray, you know, when you think about it, like in a situation where a bear encounter or an animal encounter has happened, because it's not just about bears, but if bear spray has been brought out to protect the group and bear spray has been sprayed, even if it did its job for the animal, we may be left with the residual spray in our face or on our skin. We're coughing, it's in our eyes, etc. Or there's the accidental, you know, exposures. And the first thing I would say to that is, as the minor first aid that is, first of all, if you have bear spray in your eyes, you ain't gonna die. You may feel like it, but you ain't gonna die. So bear spray in the eye is really inconvenient and it's very painful and it's very like terrible. And I know, Kim, you know that, but it will get better. So the thing is that if bear spray's gone off and it's in people's eyes, we have to make sure that the scene is safe first, right? So people always ask, well, what do I do afterwards? So the first thing I will say is you got to suck it up. Like there is no immediate remedy to bear spray in your eye, okay? I will tell you from experience that wiping yogurt on your lips to get it off your lips does not work. It's hilarious. It's a great Instagram post, but coconut or vanilla yogurt does not actually make your lips feel any better for the long term, okay? I know this, okay? So the first thing is time. People always want to remedy the symptom, okay? So if something is burning, we instinctually want to cool it, okay? So that's what you would want to do. You'd want to flush your eyes with whatever minimal water you have left. You want to, you know, jump in the lake. You want to, you know, you won't have a tap, so you can't do that. And to be honest with you, you have minimal water sometimes. So I'd be careful about how much water you're throwing into your eyes when you have nothing left for your body, especially as we come into the heat season of our backcountry. Okay, so your tears will do their job. Your own like body will help itself, but you just have to accept it. It's going to suck. Okay. Now, first piece of advice, stop touching things and then touching other things and then stop spreading the oil. Stop it. So keep your hands away from your face if you can, and let your eyes and your tears do its thing. Now, I believe sometimes that, okay, ice packs and Band-Aids, okay? A child can have the smallest of a scratch and think that they're going to die. But if you give them a Band-Aid or an ice pack, they feel better, okay? So from my perspective, it does me no harm in my hygiene kit, in my pack. I either have Johnson & Johnson baby soap. I don't think this stuff feels very good in your eyes, but it probably feels better than bear spray, okay? And I have Dawn Original, and I don't even know if this would be enough, but those two soaps, Dawn Original soap, I haven't had to use it, but from what I know, if they can clean ducks, if they can clean oil off of ducks with Dawn Original, then they can probably see some benefit of getting it off of especially my hands and my skin, if I get bear spray on me. But Kim, have you ever used it? Like, have you ever had to use like a soap?
It's funny because after I got bear sprayed, then I started carrying it. And so luckily I haven't had to use it yet, but I tell everybody to like get some Johnson & Johnson's No Tears. And I love the addition of the Dawn soap. I'm sure there'll be another time where I'll get an accidental spraying, but I got sprayed in the face by somebody during a bear encounter. So not only are we dealing with the bear, but we're dealing with the fact that I'm like partially blind and in a lot of pain, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I think for me, that's like a Band-Aid. If I've got burning sensation, even if the accidental one on our part was somebody touched the bear spray and it had gone off in a backpack, and then they put it to their lips. I don't know why, because people are stupid and they're like, oh, what is this? And they wanted to taste it. Foreign substance. I don't really know.
Yummy.
Yeah. So to me, if I have some soap in my backpack that is more, what I think is anyway reliable, then it's a Band-Aid effect, and it won't hurt me at all. To rub it on the skin, really, really trying to work the soap into the skin to break up the oil. But your first line of defense is to flush the skin, right? And to get your eyes and your skin soothed a little bit. And the soap is kind of secondary to try to break up the oil. And it apparently will help. And if anybody wants to chime in afterwards who've done it, great. I know that my husband sometimes has used it in like assaults in the city. There probably any soap will work. It's just that Dawn has an industry reputation of being the best to break up the oils, right? And the Johnson & Johnson No Tears makes us feel like it's kind of not intuitive to put soap in your eyes.
It is intimidating. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
So that's
something.
Yes,
but I went through every water bottle I could find on my way down the mountain. I had like several hours to get down to a major water source. And so as I met hikers on the way, I was like, give me your water. And so, and I brought everyone off the mountain with me because there was a very dangerous situation with a predatory grizzly bear on the mountain. So we evacuated the mountain with us, and we took everyone's water.
How long kind of roughly till the burning stopped?
It was over 4 hours, but that was because of the fact that it was hot outside. I could only get so much of the bear spray off of me. And so my pores were wide open and I was sweating, and things were ending up on other parts of my body. And then even after I jumped in the lake and tried to do it there, I went home and then stupidly turned on the shower on hot. And then what was in my hair then became like a big steam cloud of bear spray. And then I started having an asthma attack. So it was fun. I mean, you can have anaphylactic shock, you can have an asthma attack, respiratory distress. Like, bear spray is not fun.
Yeah. But did you die?
I didn't die, and the bear didn't hit me. So it worked out.
Good.
It worked out.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that I do believe, actually, and this is credit to everybody that's ever had to do first aid before. First aid is quite intuitive if you just stop complicating it with, I don't know what to do. I hear that a lot. People are like, I don't know what to do. Well, remove yourself from the stress for a second. Something is burning you. What would you do? Well, I would cool it. Well, then find a way to cool it then. Like, if all of a sudden you made this mistake, like in Kim's case, hours later, I made the mistake of going to hot water because we always want a hot shower, and the mistake is becoming obvious, then fix the solution. It's, turn off the water, put on the cold water. Like, your intuition generally is quite accurate. It's just that you overcomplicate it by, I think, two things: thinking that you don't know what to do, but also then getting flustered when something isn't working, right? So you have to be adaptable if you're going to provide first aid or solutions to problems. And that was not, a lot of people don't even think that that's first aid. But if I came home myself, I would have went for a hot shower too. I wouldn't have probably thought anything of it. You were already in the lake. That oil should be gone. Oh, shoot, that's not working. I better change what I'm doing. So when something's not working, change what you're doing. It's the same thing with when we go back to traumatic injuries and stuff. Intuitively, most people know that if you're leaking blood, you should plug it. Like, it's not hard. It's just with animal encounters, especially, there's a potential for the volume to be overwhelming. You still know what to do, but you're overwhelmed by the volume or the size, right? So from my perspective, it's always about taking a person's good sense, because everybody has good sense. They just don't necessarily trust it, and giving them ideas on how to get to the solution faster. So now that I have my triangles, I can get to the solution faster because I know that I'm going to use them. I know that I'm going to rip open that tensor and get it wrapped around a limb really quickly because I know that it works. Right? I know when something's broken, I'm going to get that person to tuck it into their body and hold it nice and still. And that's the best we can do right now. I know that you are going to get colder as the situation unfolds. So I'm going to start trying to protect you from the environment sooner than later, so I think what's more complicated, especially post-animal encounter, is just the situation itself. Like trying to get yourself and the group that you're with out of the situation, away from a dangerous grizzly, down off a mountain, warning other people, trying to calm your symptoms, right? That is what is stressful. The bear spray in the face was probably the least, yes, it caused the most physical pain, but it was probably the least stressful. The solution was obvious, right?
Absolutely. It was the least of my problems at the time. And so my body adapted. It was like, yep, you're in a lot of pain, but there's something right in front of you that could literally rip your face off. So let's deal with that instead. And that's what I say to people, even when you look at cases where people have used it and then they've got bear spray on them, they still were able to deal with the bear in front of them and they lived. So yeah, you just have to suck it up, just like you said.
That's right. And then I think like the thing is that we take away from this is we got to make sure that we are prepared for the what if. And we're coming into bear country. You could have an encounter. You most likely won't, but you could. So the bear spray is one thing. The ability to communicate is another thing. Having a first aid kit collectively in the group that contributes to the collective pot of having some more reliable supplies other than Band-Aids and blister management. Investing in a tourniquet, making sure that you don't leave the warm clothing behind all the time, and being reasonably prepared to deal with the what if. There is not a single story I have ever heard shared with me that ever said that they had enough stuff. I've never heard a story where they're like, we had everything we needed. I've heard that we've had, enough stuff to deal with the problem, but we wish we had more. So what little I bring to the table, I already know may not be enough stuff for that one bad day, but it is reasonably enough stuff that has enough versatility that I trust I can do something, and that's why when I go with people, I have the expectation that we all contribute to the pot. I'm not the only, just because I'm the first aider doesn't mean I'm the only one carrying a first aid kit. My 8-year-old carries a kit too, right? Why? Because it means that we have more stuff. Right. And so I think it's really important to start looking at the what if. And if you get a free day back and nothing happened, all the more reason to carry it the next time. Right. And so I think that's the takeaway tonight is like a couple things in your first aid kits. Look at finding a source and find some training, like find some local hands-on training. I think that's so important wherever you are. Right.
Yeah. If you're in Saskatchewan, this is the lady to go to. Back40 Wilderness First Aid.
I love it.
Yeah. No, thank you, Rebecca.
Are there questions? Should we see if there's questions and then we can wrap things up?
Yeah, we should. And then we'll give away a few prizes here at the end as well. Some of the questions I've been able to answer, but anyone have any questions? Sarah, have you seen any good questions come up that we've missed?
Just kind of scrolling back.
We will send out an email tomorrow that will have like some additional information as well as like websites and stuff like that for courses.
I'll give I just have like a packing list. It's like, items for your first aid kit, and it kind of reviews it like the 10 essential kind of things all in one list. So it's
that's good.
Yeah, we'll send that along.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people were asking about, well, what are the 10 essentials? So that'll be, that you can look it up on Google, like the 10 essentials under the U.S. Forest Service. We have classes where we'll teach those as well. Someone was asked, Donna wants to know what the optimal size for a triangular bandage is.
I think the pre ones are like 40 inches by 40 inches by 56. The bigger, the better. Like, this is the way I say it, is if they should spend, I know you can't see me, but from fingertip to fingertip, that's how long they should be. And most of the commercial ones are that size.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good. Yeah, these are some great questions. I think some people thought that the talk was tonight at 7. So if there's people trying to jump on, I'm like, oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. It is recorded though, so we will get it up online, so it won't be missed. I know a bunch of people have left right now because it's 7, so they're like, oh, I gotta go make dinner. I think you've just answered so many of the questions along the way here. And I think this is just also, I think, a very new topic for people that they're like, I don't even know where to begin, right? As to like what I need. So I think you've really given us some essential things that people need to carry. And that's what's so valuable too. Let's do a couple giveaways right now.
Yeah.
Sarah, are you still on the line?
Yeah,
Sarah,
I'm still here. I'm still here. Hi.
All
What do
right.
you want to give away, Kim?
Let's give away some Blissful. We haven't talked about Blissful tonight, but it's a friend of mine who owns the company called Blissful. They're out of Alberta, and she sells this product, and she's like, and I think Rebecca, you have some. Do you have
I
some
do.
at home?
I'm going to show you right now.
Okay, sweet.
Here's my little chunk that goes in my first aid kit, and I have a brand new box ready to restock. I love it.
Yeah. This will save you from like feeling like your ears are bleeding when your children won't stop talking about how their boots hurt. you just shove it in, even if it like it's a Band-Aid solution in a way, because then they're like, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore, even though maybe it wasn't even that bad.
Blissful is redefined how I treat my hot spots. Yeah.
Oh,
Can you show your Blissful again? Some people didn't get to see it.
Well, it's just a chunk of wool in a plastic bag. I just put it in my first aid kit. But when you buy Blissful from them, you get like a cardboard box of like raw wool. It's so awesome. And you just put it on your hot spots and ta-da, problem solved.
So speaking of which, did somebody win?
Yeah. So the winner of the Blissful is going to be Anna Rubio.
Anna, are you still on here? If you are, Anna, message us. Let us know. And if you're not, then we can always contact you afterwards, I'm sure.
Anna.
Oh, Anna's there. That's awesome.
Hey.
Next thing, do we want to give away? I'll show it because I think I have mine on me here. I do. Here's my scat belt, which again, I carry my bear spray all the time. Every time I go outdoors, whether I'm biking, taking the dog for a walk, it literally can go over top of your clothes. If you're wearing a rain jacket, if you're on your kayak, if you're trail running, I love having mine around the front so I can grab my bear spray really quickly. If I'm mountain biking, I have it in the small of my back. That's the place where I'm least likely going to fall and hurt myself. So that's where it goes. And that way, if I run into a bear, I can go grab it, pull it out. So I think one of the biggest problems I see with bear spray is just the inability for people to carry it in a place that they're going to access it. They think the water bottle holder in their backpack is a spot or inside their pack. And I'm like, you literally have, in a lot of cases, under 2 seconds to make this action and pull this stuff out and use it. And I know, Rebecca, you actually went and bought some of the inert training can, didn't you?
Yeah. I did. It's like it's Frontiersman or Kodiak Canada has them. And it was so worth it. Like my kids have played with it now. I've used it in classes sometimes, and I suck at getting the stupid clip off. So I practice actually every once in a while. I'll just buy another bottle. So worth it.
Yeah, it really is. You really do need to practice, everybody. And people forget to like take the shipping tag off and cut that off. And I end up on the trail with people. I'm like, what are you doing? You wouldn't even be able to use this. It's got the shipping tag on it still. And so, yeah, and having it there physically on you, I like practicing pulling it out. I do it a lot in the spring. And then anybody that goes hiking with me, I make them do a test with me where I basically am hiking down the trail and I yell bear at some point and I want to see how fast they can get out their bear spray. I don't even ask them where they had it. But often they're pulling off their packs, trying to get out of their backpack. And I'm like, you're all dead. They're all like, you are so ridiculous.
You were crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, you're probably not dead because you're in a group with me. But, it's just, you got to be prepared for this stuff. So anyways, Sarah, who won the scat belt?
The scat belt is going to go to Parker Jade.
Congratulations.
Parker's still here.
Parker, are you still here?
Oh yeah.
Yay, that's so great. Isn't it fun winning things? That's so great. So what we'll do is if you can send Sarah a message, Sarah Parsons is on here, or you can even email her. So there's her email, Sarah at bearsafety.ca. She will then send she will send you your prize, and same thing with the Blissful. And then here's the website for Scat Belt in case anybody wants to go online and just buy themselves one. You can use the coupon code Kim, and then you get 15% off. So I'm just trying to type this on my phone while it's not going well. So yeah, go on there, scatbelt.com, get 15% off with the coupon Kim. Same thing with blissful.com, coupon code Kim, get 15% off. And then the last prize I think we should probably give away is one of our courses. I know everyone's been asking about bear spray training. We have bear spray courses. We've got bear safety courses. They are online on demand, which is you can literally go and buy a class tonight and then you own it for life. It is like your own video. And when you've got family and friends that come to visit you and they're like, yeah, let's go for a hike. You're like, first we're going to drink beer and bears, and we're going to watch this together, and we're going to learn how to be safe together. And that way, if we have an encounter, everyone's on the same page about what we're going to do. And that's going to help us save our lives. Because if you're not on the same page, you're going to see a whole bunch of different behaviors. You're going to have people yelling, you're going to have people running. And those reactions that people have are often the cause of the attacks that happen. And when people do the right thing, they get out of these situations. And the people that I see get mauled by bears and killed by bears, often they do the wrong behavior, and that's what gets them killed and severely injured. So get on that page about that. You can go to recsafewithwildlife.com to take one of our classes. You're welcome to come to our future bear. We have a couple short version classes coming up on hiking with bears, backpacking and camping in bear country, and we have weekly classes. So sign up for our membership. Just go recsafewithwildlife.com, get a free membership. We email it out every couple of weeks. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram at recsafewithwildlife. And, just take these opportunities to learn as much as you can so you can be smart and safe when you're out there. And so we're going to give away our 2-hour bear safety class. Who won, Sarah?
Katie Cross won the bear safety class.
Hey, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Katie Cross, are you still here?
Haiti, are you still here? Tell me you're still here, Haiti. Oh, we might have to look Haiti up on our email list for the sign up. That's okay. They'll be excited and surprised.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
Any last questions or comments from you, Rebecca?
No, like I said, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Check your kits. Do it tonight. Do it tomorrow. And make your shopping list. Reach out if you want to know where to find things. I buy a lot online just because it's not always local. And you know what? Honestly, I would tell you it's worth your time to take a wilderness first aid course wherever you are. Someone had asked earlier about, should they, if they already have first aid skills. I will tell you this, every single class I've had where someone has come in with, I can tell first aid experience, they still learn something different. It's a different instructor, it's a different experience, a different time of the year. I still take first aid courses.
Yeah.
Mostly to pilfer ideas, but also because I love being a student. So go take a course, right? Start with a 20, build your way up all the way up to 80 hours. That's 2 weeks of work. But you obviously learn more the more time you put in. So take a course, go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
And I hope this saves some lives down the road and helps people be better prepared when they're out there. So I can't thank you enough, Rebecca, for your time. I know a couple people just jumped on. You're an hour late for our date. So don't worry, this is being recorded. It will end up on the Facebook page at Rec Safe with Wildlife. So thank you all so much for being here and taking the time out of your night to learn and be safer for the outdoors for your family and your friends and for the wildlife that live here. Thank you, Sarah, for organizing this, and Rebecca for being here again. I can't thank you enough. It was amazing. I learn more every time I hear you speak. It's fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.